Okay, everyone. So, we had an issue in the last episode that I saw where once we get to a choice and we try to go back in history, then we still have the choice showing up while we're back looking at the other history states. So, if we don't come to a choice or an input panel or something, we can go through history just fine. But if we come up to a choice like right here and then I hit the back arrow, then we can actually still go back while the choice is still on screen. And that is definitely not what we want. So we want to make sure we fix that. To do this, I'm simply going to prevent us from navigating history whenever a logical line is running. So what we can do for right now is we could just make a public boolean which will tell us when a logical line is running. So public bool is running logical, or actually I'll do is on logical line. Anything can see this, but we can only assign it from within the conversation manager. So by default, it's going to be false. Now, when we come down to running conversation, we have this point where we are checking to see if we are running a logical line. If we are, then we yield return the logic and just wait for that to complete. Now, what I will do is I will go ahead and say is on logical line equals true. And when it finishes, we could go ahead and say that is on logical line equals false. However, in the event that maybe this gets terminated prematurely, and we don't actually finish the logic, but we cut it off, then we might not actually reset this. So although we could put on logical line equals false right here, good grief, I bit my tongue. So although we could put it here, it might not be the safest place to do that, just in case this gets terminated somehow. So what we can do instead is we can take it to the very end or the very beginning of the line. So we can check and see right before we start working on this, we could go ahead and say is on logical line equals false, or at the very end when we're done with everything, we could say on logical line equals false. And it'll just reset at the beginning or the end of any logic or dialogue line that we're running. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right down here and say is on logical line equals false because we finished, and that'll be our little reset. And then in history navigation, I'm going to put a restriction on here. I'm going to make a new public boolean called can navigate. And this is going to be true if dialog system.instance.conversation manager is on logical line is false. If that's true, then we can navigate. So if we're not viewing history or not can navigate, then we're not going to do anything. Likewise, for if we're trying to go back, if progress equals 0 and is viewing history, or we can't navigate, then we're going to return and do nothing. And then when we come over here, we can go ahead and see that I can go through the history states just fine. But once we come up to the choice, then if I try to hit the buttons, I sure can't. I can't go anywhere until I make my decision, and now I can go back through the history states again.